Chapter 1261, Big Sis-in-Law. Money is not omnipotent in this world, but it does nearly serve as an all-purpose thing. Tang Xiu indifferently said, "You need a colossal amount of money to buy cultivation resources if you want to cultivate and keep becoming stronger. This subordinate of yours should also feel the same." "That's right." The young man nodded and then added, "All of my money has been used to buy things that can help me improve my strength all these years indeed." "I suppose you always buy it on the black market, yes?" Tang Xiu smilingly said, "To be honest, I also have been wanting to visit the black market to broaden my knowledge. But I haven't been able to go there since many things got me occupied." "Well, that place is neither a good or bad place if you ask me," the young man replied. Tang Xiu smiled indifferently in response, shifted back to Gao Beilei and faintly said, "The wicked tumors in the magnificent Tang Corporation are to be eradicated directly. The list I just gave those guys is the names of Chen Liwei's lackeys. Therefore, you are to announce that Chen Liwei and more than 20 people under him were fired by the company because of corruption. Other than that, you are to summon the head of the security department of the magnificent Tang Corporation here now." Gao Beilei nodded, but then she hesitated as she thought that Tang Xiu would strike the security department as well. "Boss, the security department's head, Su Ben, has always been a loyal and honest figure here. He's also very capable. I don't think he's in cahoots with Chen Liwei's group." "Su Ben?" As a smile climbed up on Tang Xiu's face, he could see the concern and worry flash past Gao Beilei's eyes. Then, he chuckled and said, "I know Su Ben. But I'm a bit surprised to see you protecting him." "That's a surprise to me. I suppose you have a good personal relationship with him, yes?" Gao Beilei hesitated before a bitter smile appeared on her face and she said, "Actually, we've been concealing our relationship to the company for the time being. But now that boss asked me about it, I have to tell you that Su Ben and I are husband and wife. We already have the legal certificate for more than a year, but we haven't had a banquet yet." "Huh? Come again?" Tang Xiu suddenly got up from the sofa and looked at Gao Beilei incredulously, asking, You got married to Su Ben? How did you get together?" Gao Beilei looked a bit shy, but she quickly suppressed it and replied, "Su Ben has an honest and pure character, and I gradually came to like him after getting along for some time. In actuality, it was I who pursued him." Tang Xiu looked at Gao Beilei with an expression of being at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh. He waved to the young man to leave, leaving him and Gao Beilei in the office. Afterward, he poured a cup of tea and took it as he walked to Gao Beilei and handed it to her, which made her extremely flattered. Then, he said, "Big sis-in-law, I had no idea you had such a relationship with Brother Ben before. So many of my actions were rather offensive to you. I hope you can forgive me. Also, don't tell Brother Ben about what happened between us today. Otherwise, he'll definitely smack me for sure." Gao Beilei was flabbergasted and dumbly stared at Tang Xiu, who wore a forced smile. Her shock was even greater than when she heard Tang Xiu was a cultivator. Big sister-in-law? The dignified big boss of the magnificent Tang Corporation. A fearsome cultivator who is addressed by his subordinates as Your Majesty, a super big personage, yet he actually called me big sis-in-law? What kind of a big joke is this? Looking at Gao Beilei's face, Tang Xiu realized that Su Ben hadn't told her about his relationship with him, so he smiled and said, "Big sis-in-law, Brother Ben and I actually grew up together. We used to live in the Su family village, and the two of us were neighbors. Well, strictly speaking, we are kind of relatives since each household in the entire Su family village is still related by blood. I brought Brother Ben to Star City and arranged for him to be a security guard at the winery then. I've been too busy all these years and even went into seclusion overseas to cultivate, so I have no idea about his progress and achievement now. It never occurred to me that he'd have married you secretly." Only now did Gao Beilei finally understand. Looking at Tang Xiu's smiling face, she could feel his feelings. "Boss, then you and Su Quan. Well, we all grew up together. If you ask me, Tang Xiu chuckled, we're all close brothers. And, although my family name is not Su, my mother is surnamed Su. Quickly after, Su Ben rushed into the general manager office and rapidly asked the moment he came inside, Beilei, you called me over in such a hurry. Did something happen? He didn't finish his words because he saw Tang Xiu. Tang Xiu greeted him with a smile, opened his arm and laughed. It's been a few years since the last time I saw you, Brother Ben. Well, you look much better than before. To think that you even got married to Gao Lei, the famous general manager of the magnificent Tang Corporation. Damn. You truly deserve to be admired. That's so damn great, brother. Su Ben looked excited and his eyes were slightly red. He dashed towards Tang Xiu, opened his arms and gave a big hug. He slapped Tang Xiu's back with his fists and then said, I finally see you again, Tang Xiu. It's been a few years indeed. I'd have gone already to search for you everywhere had it not been for Chief Kong telling me that you went into seclusion to cultivate. No worries, brother. I'm all fine and dandy. Tang Xiu chuckled and smilingly said, anyhow, you seem much stronger now after more than 3 years, no? You have broken through to the golden core stage? It's all thanks to you for sending those cultivation resources to me, Quan, and Xiangfei frequently, brother. Su Ben gruffly laughed and said, else, it would have been impossible for my cultivation to progress so quickly. Tang Xiu was stunned and then wryly smiled. I never gave such an order. It should be Kong Xia.
Meh.
We're all family. You or Kong Xia are all the same. Su Ben laughed. Gao Beilei, on the other hand, was in disbelief as though she just got acquainted with Su Ben again and exclaimed with incredulity, you're also a cultivator? Su Ben said with an apologetic expression, please don't blame me for hiding it from you, Beilei. Tang Xiu forbade us to tell anything to anyone about it. Not even to our loved ones. That's why I never told you about it. But I've been meaning to talk to him when I meet him again later all this while, to see whether you can also cultivate. Gao Beilei's mood was overly complicated. Everything that happened today made her feel like she was riding a roller coaster. Suddenly, she seemed to recall something and hurriedly asked, then you should also know that Reese is also a practitioner, shouldn't you? You also know that there are 4 powerful experts protecting me, right? Su Ben nodded and said, I already knew their existence ever since I met you. However, I've talked with Reese in private and then learned that he wants to repay his debt. I know that not only will he not harm you, but he'll also protect you in secret. As for those 4 guys sent by Chief Kong, well, Chief Kong notified me about it previously. Gao Beilei was annoyed and angrily snapped. You had better kneel and do some washboard when you get home later. Su Ben awkwardly raised his hand to scratch the back of his head. Tang Xiu laughed secretly and watched as Gao Beilei played the strict wife against the henpecked Su Ben. He patted Su Ben's shoulder and said, anyhow, when are you and sis-in-law going to hold a wedding banquet, Brother Ben? That's right, I gave sis-in-law a jade pendant before to protect her safety, but it's just a trashy one-time use magic tool. Sis-in-law, please accept this cultivation technique manual. It's a very powerful immortal cultivation technique, and you can begin cultivating straight away. Ask Brother Ben to guide you frequently and you'll be able to make great achievements in the future. Gao Beilei took the cultivation technique manual and asked with a surprised look, Boss, the jade pendant you gave before me, can it really protect me?
Yeah.
Tang Xiu nodded and explained, it's a defensive type magic tool. Though its grade is very low, it can protect you from any ordinary accident. For instance, a car accident. Even if a large truck speeding at 200 kilometers per hour were to directly hit you, you would still come out unscathed. You would also be okay, even if someone were to shoot you with a gun. However, this magic tool will be destroyed after being used once. Gao Beilei's lips wriggled a few times and her heart moved a bit. She didn't expect Tang Xiu to be concerned and considered her safety the first time he met her. How could that jade pendant be regarded as trash? That was a life-saving amulet. Subsequently, Tang Xiu and Su Ben recounted their old days before the three people left the general manager office. At the same time, a great storm was caused by the magnificent Tang Corporation's actions. Chen Liwei, the deputy general manager of the magnificent Tang Corporation, abused his position for personal gain, embezzled a huge amount of money and was directly fired. The director of magnificent Tang Winery was in cahoots with Chen Liwei, and was directly sacked due to the huge amount of funds he embezzled. The deputy manager of the magnificent Tang sales department. The regional manager of the magnificent Tang Corporation. More than 20 mid-level and high-level executives of the magnificent Tang Corporation were fired all at once, an event that shocked the entire company's employees and made them scared. Further, the personnel of the company also learned from the various channels that the big boss, Tang Xiu, had come back and all of the decisions were given by the big boss himself. It was then followed by an announcement. Big Boss has personally decreed that any senior executive of the magnificent Tang Corporation, regardless of who and their position, that previously used his position for personal gain will receive reduced punishment as long as they admit their faults and return the embezzled money. Otherwise, once the investigation starts and they are found guilty, not only will they be fired, they will also be handed to the judiciary with follow-up legal proceedings. The news quickly spread throughout the entire magnificent Tang Corporation in just half a day, and it was even known to the entire business society in Shanghai. 5:30 in the evening. Before the employees of the magnificent Tang Corporation got off work, more than a dozen high-level executives came and admitted their faults one after another. They pledged to return the embezzled money and were willing to be demoted and relegated. As the general manager of the magnificent Tang Corporation, Gao Beilei was embarrassed to face Tang Xiu after all these incidents. However, Tang Xiu himself didn't care about it. He just smiled and consoled her before he went straight to visit the industrial park. His actions made Gao Beilei grateful, and Su Ben felt warm inside. During this time, another shocking and breaking news also quickly spread throughout the company and caused a great sensation. Chapter 1262, The Choice You Can Pick. The news that spread quickly throughout the magnificent Tang Corporation was, General Manager Gao Beilei and Security Department Head Su Ben have married in secret a year ago and have become legal husband and wife. Big Boss Tang Xiu and Security Department Head Su Ben grew up together, and Big Boss Tang addressed Gao Beilei Big Sis-in-law in front of many people. In a flash, the employees in the whole company now looked at Su Ben in a different light. Even fools could now see that the real bull of the company aside from the big boss Tang Xiu was Su Ben. With the big boss as a brother, the general manager who had become his wife was the real winner of a lifetime. At dusk, Tang Xiu, Su Ben, Gao Beilei, Su Quan, and Su Xiangfei, who had just arrived, all gathered in the Blue Star Villa complex, enjoying rare dinner time. Wow! It's so lively here. Clear harmonious laughter came from outside the dining room. Chen Xiaowan, wearing a red trench coat, came into the room and brought with her a fragrant scent. Tang Xiu got up, went forward to greet her and gave Chen Xiaowan a big hug. After releasing her, he smilingly said, "It's been more than 3 years since the last time we met, Sis Xiaowan. You look more beautiful and younger than ever. Anyway, why didn't you bring my future brother-in-law here?" "Cut the crap, silly. I don't have a boyfriend yet." Chen Xiaowan chuckled and said, "Big sis has been missing you. You just left and went away for more than 3 years." Having said that, her eyes looked slightly reddish, and she would have burst into tears if there weren't so many people present. Tang Xiu held her shoulders and smilingly said, "I've been very busy dealing with some things, Sis Xiaowan. Otherwise, I'd have run back to see you already. Come, I'll introduce you to these guys." Chen Xiaowan took a deep breath, trying hard to suppress her emotions, and smilingly said,
Nah.
"Spare me the introduction. Who doesn't know these guys, silly? It's just, I never thought that General Manager Gao would also be here." "She's my wife, Sis Xiaowan." Su Ben chuckled. "You say what?" Chen Xiaowan was as though getting hit by unbelievable news. As the general manager of the magnificent Tang Corporation and a great personage in the finance world, Gao Beilei was, without a doubt, one of the super personages whose eyes eyed the top. Yet, she turned out to be Su Ben's wife? No way, is this some kind of prank or something? They're worlds apart. I was equally dumbstruck the moment I heard it too, Sis Xiaowan. Tang Xiu chuckled and said, but after thinking about it, only then did I understand that one man's meat could be another man's poison. General Manager Gao loves Brother Ben. It's like a dense and cold foxtail grass getting together with warm and spicy safflower. Pfft. Everyone abruptly burst into laughter and Su Ben gruffly scratched his head, at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh. Nobody was a stranger here. Thus, the atmosphere was warm and harmonious. Just as everyone had enough to eat and drink, Scarface Chang came over in a rush. The man's hair was rather long and his face was unshaved. His whole being, however, didn't look decadent but instead looked vigorous and full of spirit, though the smell of alcohol on him hadn't yet disappeared. Obviously, he was drinking tons of alcohol when Tang Xiu called him boss. Scarface Chang was barely able to hold back his excitement as he called out. Tang Xiu pushed the chair and got up. He then came to Scarface Chang's front, looked at his slightly reddish eyes, and gently patted his shoulder. Then, he turned his head and said, Quan, tell Auntie to get a bowl of noodles and cook 2 hot dishes. There are no strangers here today, and there's something I need to tell everyone. All right, you come here and take a seat first. Scarface Chang felt warm inside and took a seat next to Tang Xiu. Afterward, he forced a bitter smile and said, I'm really sorry for letting you down, boss. No, it should be me apologizing to you. Tang Xiu waved his hand and said, I got too preoccupied in the past years and failed to take care of you. Regardless, we're all adults here, so there's no need to pull any pretentious attitude with each other. Now that I'm back, I'm going to give all you a choice, and I'll respect your decision no matter which one you choose. Scarface Chang's lips squirmed, but he didn't utter anything and just firmly nodded. Ever since he met Tang Xiu in his hometown, he had already decided to give up everything and handed his future to Tang Xiu when he went to Star City with him. All things considered, Tang Xiu didn't disappoint him. He founded a winery and brewed the world's best wine, God's Nectar. The magnificent Tang Corporation rapidly developed and he became a billionaire in just a few years as a result. Even if he finally left the company helplessly and gave up his position as the winery director, he still had several billion yuan in his bank account. The money itself was just his dividends in recent years. In his heart, Tang Xiu's kindness and his acknowledgement of his worth made him trust Tang Xiu unconditionally. Tang Xiu raised his cup of wine and toasted with Scarface Chang's. He then casually said, Chen Liwei has been killed by me, and those tens of corruptors and embezzlers in the company have been removed as well. Some others who once took advantage of the company have also been punished. Scarface Chang was inwardly shaken and looked grateful. He had no idea how Tang Xiu was able to investigate this matter. But whether he had investigated it or not, it was obvious that Tang Xiu had avenged his grudge by killing the culprit who had framed him. Scarface Chang's life is yours to use in the future, boss. Tang Xiu smiled slightly in response. He then lowered his glass and continued, there are no outsiders here, so I'm giving 2 choices to all of you. Firstly, I'll teach a cultivation technique and turn you into a cultivator. But after 2 years, you all will have to leave your families and businesses and strive with me in another world, and you will have no chance to return to Earth again in your lifetime. The other choice, Chang, you'll have a 49% stake in the winery 2 years later. You can also become the Deputy General Manager of the Magnificent Tang Corporation should you choose this option, with which you can get status and fortune easily. Whatever you decide, I'll respect your decision no matter what. Scarface Chang was silent for a while and then slowly asked, "Where are we going to, exactly? Am I just the only person who can leave and can't take anyone else?" "You can bring 4 people with you," Tang Shou said. "You can take 4 people you care about most, and they can also cultivate. As for our destination, you should have heard of it. It's the immortal world as told in the legends. Just 3. I only need 3 quotas." Scarface Chang said in a deep voice, "Boss, this Scarface Chang has received your grace and acknowledgement. I can feel that you really regard me as your own person. My parents have passed away and I only have my loved ones, a wife and a pair of children." "Is that really your final decision?" asked Tang Xiu with a smile. Scarface Chang firmly nodded, and his eyes even looked more excited as he said in a deep voice, "That's really my decision. Although I know nothing about cultivation nor do I know whether the immortal world is really as wonderful as told in the legends, I still want to keep following you, boss." Tang Xiu then shifted to Chen Xiaowan and smilingly asked, "How about you, Sis Xiaowan? But what can I do there?" Chen Xiaowan hesitated. "Following me will either give you a chance to have a happy and prosperous life or face death together with me," Tang Xiu answered. "I don't understand what you mean." Chen Xiaowan was confused. "Sis Xiaowan, you should have heard of the ascendance of cultivators to become immortals." Tang Xiu explained, "As a matter of fact, this is not some fairy tale and story in the legends, it's real. The higher plane above our world is a much vaster world with trillions of races called the immortal world. However, I also have archenemies I have a deep blood feud with over yonder, and these enemies of mine are also very powerful. If you follow me to the immortal world, you may one day stand above trillions of walks of life, but there's also a chance that I'll be killed by my powerful enemies and we will all vanish. The reason I came back and called you to come here is to give you these choices." Chen Xiaowan thought about it for a while and then replied, "I'm going with you, brother." "Have you thought it through?" asked Tang Xiu with a smile. "Positive." Chen Xiaowan nodded. "Since both of you have decided so, then you're to leave your work and then follow me later. After you're done dealing with your private affairs, go to 9 Dragons Island." "Huh? Where's this 9 Dragons Island?" Chen Xiaowan asked curiously. "It's an island in the Pacific Ocean I bought. It's also my base camp," Tang Xiu replied with a smile. Chen Xiaowan rolled her eyes and snappily exclaimed, "You bought an island, and yet you just told me? You really got no conscience, you know that?" "Conscience?" Tang Xiu forced a wry smile inwardly. He was too lazy to quarrel with her because he would definitely end up the loser every time he quarreled. Suddenly, Su Ben interjected. "I'm going with you to the immortal world 2 years later, Tang Xiu. You gotta find someone else to manage the magnificent Tang Corporation when the time comes." Tang Xiu was stunned and couldn't help laughing immediately. "Okay. We'll make arrangements for that moment, of course. However, you, Xiangfei, Quan and some others will start from tomorrow. Deal with your private issues and work. Then you go home and take your loved ones to 9 Dragons Island. Adapt to life there first and keep cultivating. You can adapt to your new life in the immortal world faster later." "What about me?" Gao Beilei hurriedly asked. Tang Xiu spent some time to ponder about it. Then, he slowly said, "Sis-in-law, you're to stay here. We still need the magnificent Tang Corporation to make money, after all. Although I won't send anyone else to search the entire earth for resources, I won't leave good things behind. Besides, we still need tons of money to purchase resources." Gao Beilei nodded in response. But then, she suddenly understood something and exclaimed, "No wonder more than 90% of the net income of our magnificent Tang Corporation is to be transferred quickly all this time. It turns out that you use it to purchase cultivation resources. Well, we got hundreds of thousands of people who need cultivation resources, to begin with. Tang Xiu wryly smiled. We wouldn't have been able to maintain everything if we didn't have a huge wealth to support them. It's still manageable for now, but it will be a true headache when we go to the immortal world. After all, the currency used in the immortal world are things used by immortals. Our consumption will be simply like a bottomless pit. Everyone exchanged dismayed glances and suddenly couldn't utter anything in response. They knew nothing about the immortal world and naturally had no idea what kind of currency was used over there. Still, there were hundreds of thousands of people needing cultivation resources? Meaning, Tang Xiu had been cultivating hundreds of thousands of cultivators all this time? Chapter 1263, Shoot Me. As morning came and the first rays of sunlight rose from the eastern horizon, Tang Xiu woke up from his sleep. It felt very refreshing to him after having gone through a busy life for so long and suddenly relaxing now. He then went downstairs and had breakfast with a group of people who stayed overnight last night. Afterward, Tang Xiu, Su Ben, and Gao Beilei headed to the magnificent Tang Corporation along with Scarface Chang. This morning, a message then spread throughout the company that the previous winery director, Dai Chang, turned out to be framed and then lost his position. However, Big Boss Tang Xiu found him personally and entrusted him with a higher position as Deputy General Manager of the magnificent Tang Corporation. The person himself may not have an unwarranted reputation, but it still shocked many people. Further, everyone also realized that Dai Chang had a very close relationship with Tang Xiu. In the evening, Tang Xiu received Miao Wendong, Xiao Mingzhen, and several families' patriarchs at the magnificent Tang Corporation, and then signed the cooperation to develop the island in the South China Sea. 80 billion yuan had been prepaid and transferred, and the project only needed some required follow-ups to supervise. Subsequently, it was expected that the magnificent Tang Corporation's project in developing the island into the world's top tourist location could be carried out smoothly. The project itself would be headed by a senior executive from magnificent Tang Corporation. The next day, Tang Xiu brought Tang Along and left for the Taklamakan Desert. The secret base built by the Chinese authority was located there, and the person in charge of the site was the director of the Special Abilities Bureau, Duan Mulin. Even most of this agency's members were also stationed there. What have you learned from your observation after following me in the last few days? Lang. Sitting on the train bound for the southern Xinjiang, Tang Xiu calmly looked at Tang Along on the couchette in front of him. How master deals with people, Tang Along respectfully said. Only this aspect, asked Tang Xiu with a faint smile. In general, it's indeed only this aspect, though there are also some more important details to emphasize. Tang Along shook his head and continued, Master met acquaintances to maintain and to grow the relationship between both sides. You also subtly approached people close to you to set off on our journey in the future. Other than that, you made decisive and fast decisions when you removed all the unwanted elements in the magnificent Tang Corporation. All in all the events show that you're someone who has ways with people and also greatly attaches importance to relationship and righteousness. I don't recall asking you to comment on my conduct, brat. Tang Xiu rolled his eyes and snappishly said. I just expressed what I've learned from you, master, Tang Along smilingly replied. What is it? Asked Tang Xiu curiously. Wisdom. Tang Onlang smiled.
Meh.
If you want to kiss my ass, just do it directly and don't beat around the bush. Tang Xiu shook his head and smilingly said, Anyway, what's your progress in learning the content of the array manual? I've grasped 30% of it, but I have to consult the remaining 70% with you since I don't understand them, Tang Along answered. I've marked everything I don't yet understand, so I guess I'm going to ask you now. All right. Tang Xiu nodded. The two of them then sat on their respective soft couchettes. Tang Xiu himself had previously considered instructing Tang Along the knowledge about arrays whenever he had time, so he reserved this for couchette room. Time passed by quickly. All the way on the road, Tang Xiu lectured and Tang Along studied. Both master and disciple were enthusiastic to play their roles. Finally, after changing special cars a few times, the two people stood on the edge of the Taklamakan desert. Tang Xiu also bought a lot of daily necessities on the way here, including food and water, all of which were stored in his interspatial ring. Therefore, he didn't need to worry about the lack of supplies in the desert. 2 days later. At this time, Tang Xiu arrived at a flat ground in the desert and calmly walked with Tang Along. Finally, the two of them stopped at the edge of an oasis. It should be around here given the position, master. Tang Along took out a map from the interspatial ring and said after carefully observing the location and comparing it with the map.
Yeah,
it should be here. Tang Xiu nodded. What else do you notice? Tang Along carefully observed the surroundings and thought in silence. Then, he said, the communication signal here has been shielded since my cell phone caught no signal, and the energy fluctuations in this place are rather abnormal given the compass isn't working either. Further, I've observed this oasis too. It's quite strange, there's no sign of life nor any source of water. On the contrary, the world's spiritual energy here is rich beyond my expectations. Such a situation shouldn't be possible given the location. Lastly, the temperature the moment we came to this oasis differs from the outside roughly by at least 20 degrees. This is not normal. Your observation is quite thorough and attentive, but rather ordinary coming from you. Tang Xiu smiled slightly. There's something else? Tang Along confused. Try to take a look around to the distance from the spot we're standing now. Do you notice something different from the area when we walked here? Tang Along thought more for a while and then said with an ashamed expression, You're right, master. When we saw the oasis from the outside, the area was just about 4 basketball courts in size. But after we came here, the visual distance I can see is at least up to 2 kilometers, and I can't see anything beyond 2 kilometers. Further, although we paused for a while, we only walked for about less than 500 m, meaning that the visual distance we can see outside is different from the real size of the area here. You just said before that the world's spiritual energy here is a bit different, and so is the energy fluctuation. Haven't you figured out why? Tang Xiu added. Tang Along thought for a while and then suddenly said, This oasis is covered by an array. It's just I wasn't able to sense it when we came from the outside. That's right. This area is indeed blanketed by an array, and I was the one who arranged it myself. Tang Xiu smiled and said, the area of this oasis is roughly around 1,000 square kilometers, but it looks to be reduced in size by several folds after I arranged the array. As a double precaution, I also shielded any communication signal within a few hundred kilometers area and arranged a special magnetic field. Therefore, even those satellites in orbit won't be able to detect anything in this place. Is there anything particular in this place, Master? Tang Along was bewildered. You'll know about it soon. Tang Xiu smiled lightly. Also, stay silent later and just listen, observe, and think. Well, some people are going to see us here. Tang Along's expression slightly shifted after hearing this and his gaze suddenly shifted into the distance, surprised. A spot in the midst of a green expanse of grass 200 meters ahead suddenly opened up and a green vehicle came out fast shortly after, coming towards them in several seconds. Bam! The car's door was quickly opened and 2 young men holding rifles came out. Both of them wore LCD goggles and aimed their guns at Tang Xiu and Tang Along with vigilance. Who are you and how did you get here? One of the young men in camouflage suit coldly asked in a deep voice. You don't know me, so you're new here, aren't you? Tang Xiu smiled and said, Don't tell me Duanmu Lin has yet to hang my photo in this base for you to respect? Huh? The 2 young men exchanged dismayed glances and immediately looked angry. The one that just talked lifted his gun's muzzle and shouted, "Do you think you can just say the name of our chief? Who the hell are you? Answer me, else don't blame us for taking hard measures." Tang Xiu narrowed his eyes and glanced at the guns in their hands. He then smilingly said, "That must be a laser gun, yes? It should be quite powerful and able to penetrate iron walls at least about 50 centimeters. Try to shoot me. I want to see if this gun is as powerful as recorded in the data." What? The two men were dumbfounded. They never dreamed that Tang Xiu knew that the guns in their hands were laser guns. It must be noted that the laser gun had just been developed roughly a year ago. It was quite powerful with an extremely far firing range. They could see their long-range targets as long as they wore long-range vision LCD goggles. Still, was there something wrong with this guy's head? He wanted them to shoot at him with such a powerful laser gun? Did he want to commit suicide or something? Where the hell did this lunatic come from? Both of them faintly had a headache and hesitated. "What are you two worried about, huh?" Tang Xiu lightly smiled and said, "I told you to shoot me and let me have a look, didn't I? I'm really curious whether the developed laser gun is really as powerful as reported." The eyes of the young man who spoke glinted. He had a faint hunch that the young man standing in front of him shouldn't be ordinary. It was very likely that he was also an ability user like him. He had just awakened his special ability about 1.5 years ago and then became a quite formidable ability user, after undergoing training. Further, this place was the most secretive and important base in the country, and the people who could casually come here were not ordinary people. "Shoot." He took a deep breath and pulled the trigger to shoot Tang Xiu. Zap. A laser beam was shot from the gun and directly hit Tang Xiu's chest. The youth expected that the guy in front of him would be severely injured even if he didn't die. It was because he himself would also be injured even though he was an ability user. However, what happened next left him utterly flabbergasted. The laser beam that hit the chest of the young man in front of him simply stopped and was unable to move forward. The laser beam seemed to be blocked by a transparent energy shield. No way. The young man's eyes bulged out and nearly popped out. He saw that the laser beam was not only able to injure this stranger but also unable to leave any scratch on this young man's clothes. This. Chapter 1264, Colossal Project. Smiling faintly, Tang Xiu patted his chest and then chuckled. Quite powerful indeed. If my guess is correct, this laser gun's firing range should be at least 2 kilometers, and it can blast a 100-ton boulder directly. The plot of the green expanse of grass hundreds of meters away suddenly lifted up and 2 green unusual cars came out. After speeding over, they stopped in front of everyone, and Zhulong strode to the front of Tang Xiu with a happy, surprised face, calling out, "You are here, Mr. Tang." "Well, I just arrived," Tang Xiu smilingly replied. "Chief Duanmu will definitely be happy if he knows you are here," said Zhulong excitedly. The young man who shot him looked doubtful. He secretly thought of the name of a certain man upon hearing Zhulong's address. But recalling it sent a chill down his spine as he was sure that he would meet some bad luck if his guess was correct. It was because this certain person was known by all members of the Special Abilities Bureau, a godlike existence who was the main contributor for this site establishment. He's Tang Xiu? At this moment, Tang Xiu himself also noticed the grim look on the young man's face and worry in his eyes. He paced several steps forward and gently patted the young man's shoulders, smilingly saying, "Don't look worried. You can't be blamed since you don't know me." Zhulong was stunned and bewildered. What happened? The young man wore an expression that was uglier than crying and replied, "About this. Mr. Tang asked me to shoot at him, saying that he wanted to try the power of the laser gun we've developed. Hence, I ended up shooting him, but it didn't even leave a scratch on Mr. Tang's clothes at all." Zhulong immediately looked furious and cursed. "Bastard. Are you that stupid and just shot Mr. Tang just because he asked you to do so? Do you know who he is? He's the very godlike man you boys must worship and admire. How dare you shoot at him? Are you tired of living already? Only then did the young man instantly understand that this handsome and audacious young man was exactly the famous Tang Xiu. At this moment, he nearly burst into tears and stutteringly said with wriggling lips, Mr. Tang, I am really sorry. I didn't know who you were. Please forgive me. I'm just a newcomer here, and my special ability has just awakened for more than a year, and it's only been over a year since I came here. I just said that you're not to blame since you didn't know me, didn't I? Tang Xiu said with a smile. All right, go back to your duty. Zhu Long, take me to see Senior Duanmu. Understood. Glaring fiercely at the young man, Zhu Long then immediately led Tang Xiu and Tang Along to board the strange car and headed to the exit tunnel. The strange vehicle had a spacious interior and Tang Xiu was slightly surprised after observing it, for a while due to its extremely fast speed. After entering the passage, the vehicle sped up at a speed of 450 kilometers per hour and took less than half a minute, before it stopped in front of a large, empty hall made of metal. After Tang Xiu and Tang Along got off the vehicle, they saw 18 strong men in camouflage suits and armed with laser guns standing around the round hall. Each of them wore extremely stern expressions. Mr. Tang. These 18 strong men obviously knew who Tang Xiu was, and a fanatical look filled their eyes the moment they saw him. Tang Xiu faintly smiled in response. As he flicked his fingers, 18 pills suddenly shot into their hands and he smilingly said, It's been a long time and you all have become more powerful, guys. I hope these 18 pills can make you go further. Thank you, Mr. Tang. The 18 people were excited and simultaneously saluted. A look of envy was cast on Zhu Long's face. But he was well aware of Tang Xiu's generosity. He recalled that he also obtained a lot of medicinal pills from Tang Xiu the last time he came here. Each expert of the Special Abilities Bureau that obtained such pills from Tang Xiu had progressed by leaps and bounds, and their strengths greatly improved. Tang Xiu was keenly aware of Zhu Long's expression. He threw a jade bottle to him and said with a smile, Well, I'm afraid Duanmu Lin won't stay in the position of the Special Abilities Bureau's director soon. I'm giving you a bottle of pills hoping you can take over his duty in the future later. What do you mean? The excited smile on Zhu Long's face suddenly froze. Tang Xiu only let out a light smile in response but didn't explain anything. After hinting to the man to lead the way, a roughly 10 meters wide and 4 meters high door slowly opened on the wall of the circular round hall. Oh, God. Despite having a very steady disposition, Tang Along, who followed Tang Xiu inside, couldn't help exclaiming, and his breathing turned fast. Hey, don't show off your inexperience and make me look bad. Tang Xiu glanced at him and whispered. Tang Along accepted the instruction, but the shock on his face was not reduced in the slightest as he hurriedly replied, What exactly is this place, master? How do I feel like I just entered a high-tech world of an advanced civilization? It's like I'm seeing a scene from foreign sci-fi movies. Everything here gives me a huge shock. While walking inside, Tang Xiu explained, You're right. This place is indeed a world of advanced civilization, and the tech you're seeing here is at least 10 times or even 100 times more advanced than the technology you can find on Earth today. Maybe it will take centuries of development for technology on Earth to reach the level of technology you see here. Let alone centuries. It's very likely that it would take millenniums for the Earth's science and technology to develop before it can reach this level of technology. It's because there are some special materials here that can't be found on Earth. If it wasn't for the energy converter which can convert the materials, it would be impossible to develop more advanced machinery and objects such as we can see here. Tang Xiu let out an indifferent smile in response. He didn't continue stepping on the stairway leading to the space in front but directly floated up, and walked in the air forward step by step. The place itself was a very large underground space. As far as the area was concerned, Tang Xiu's eyes couldn't see the end of the area at all. There were countless strange-shaped machines in the interior, and many armed soldiers in field uniforms were seen riding aerogliders everywhere, while various other vehicles remained on the ground but flew according to a special flying path. Further, there were also a large number of high-tech weapons here. Tang Oolong even saw that more than a dozen fighter jets were parked in one corner of this space, while hundreds of personnel in blue overalls were busy around the fighter jets. But what shocked him was that these aircraft were not the kind of fighters he had seen in the outside world. He had read many military magazines prior to this and learned about many advanced fighters in the world. Still, even the smallest aircraft from the dozens of aircraft here was over 200 meters long and its wings were scarily big. Tang Oolong silently estimated that these aircraft definitely could accommodate more than 1,000 people. This must be an alien aircraft. Tang Oolong whispered inwardly and secretly suppressed his shock. Loud and clear laughter suddenly came from the distance as Duan Mulin flew directly to Tang Xiu. He stepped forward and gave Tang Xiu a big hug as he smilingly said, "You finally come out from that isolated island, boy. What do you think about this place after looking around? This place has changed so much after a few years of development, yes? It's really different from before, indeed." Tang Xiu smilingly replied, "It shows that you've done a great job here. By the way, I got one thing to ask. Can this base build interstellar battleships within 2 years? At least the Tier 3 interstellar spaceship?" The smile on Duan Mulin's face receded and he replied with a lost expression, "What do you think? Even if all the personnel keep working overtime in research, experiment, and manufacturing, it's just impossible to get it done in 2 years. Do you think researching and developing interstellar battleships is like handling a cabbage we can easily grow?" A smile sketched on the corner of Tang Xiu's mouth as he replied, "Well, since it's not feasible, I'm afraid you won't be able to see the results of our research here, neither will you be able to see the future development of science and tech on Earth in the future. To be honest, I've been wanting to ride such an interstellar battleship to stroll around the Milky Way." 2 years. Duan Mulin's heart pounded and he shot a deep stare at Tang Xiu, asking, "You already made a decision? It's going to be 2 years later? Everything is ready and only needs to wait for the right time." Tang Xiu nodded. "That's why it can't wait more than 2 years before leaving." Duan Mulin forced a smile and said, "Can we stretch the time a bit?" 5 years. We can manufacture interstellar battleships in at least another 5 years. At that time, I also want to ride this aircraft and take a stroll around the galaxy. We don't have that leisure." Tang Xiu shook his head and said, "Unless." Duan Mulin's expression shifted and he hurriedly asked, "Unless what?" "I'm going to make a big move in the near future, so if the world's top scientists and researchers were to be brought here, do you think you can produce an interstellar battleship within 2 years?" Duan Mulin thought for a while and then shook his head. "I'm not sure, honestly. However, it may be promising if we give it a try, regardless." Tang Xiu nodded and said, "If so, you wait here to receive a constant influx of scientists and technical personnel. Give me a communicator. I'm going to make 2 calls." Duan Mulin immediately took out the communicator and handed it to Tang Xiu. "You can use this freely. This communicator can connect to various communication equipment in the world and can't be traced by any satellite of any country." Tang Xiu nodded and dialed a set of numbers. After his call was picked up, he said, "Jing, sure. Mobilize our intel department from today on and focus on investigating 2 targets. The first one being the world's top 3 forces as well as House Dolan and the Dark Wind. The second one is, you are to investigate technological scientists and researchers in various fields around the world, the best ones there are in each country. Give me the list after you're done investigating them. Does your Majesty have a certain number in mind already?" Jin Shi's voice asked from the phone. Chapter 1265, being inflexible. Tang Shou thought for a while and then spoke through the phone. The specific number is not mandatory, but the secret base in China requires a large number of scientists and researchers, so the more, the better. Keep in mind, you just need to investigate these people from various countries around the world. I'll assign someone else to deal with the following moves later. Understood. Jing replied and was about to hang up when he suddenly recalled something else. After a moment of hesitation, he said, "Are you now in a secret base in China, Your Majesty?" "Yes, I just arrived here," Tang Shou said. "Your Majesty, according to our intel cells in China, there are two groups of foreign forces that have infiltrated the Hutian recently. Our intel operatives encountered those two groups 2 days ago and injured 4 people before they finally lost their tracks. From the last trails, before they disappeared, we inferred that they should be heading towards the Taklamakan Desert. Further, we also found from surveillance video that they have purchased living supplies in Hutian City, which means that they're preparing to infiltrate the desert." "You mean, they came for this secret base?" Tang Shou asked. "I dare not guarantee it 100%, said Jing. Tang Shou pondered for a short while and said, "Text me the number and characteristics of these two groups and all the intel information you've gathered about them. Additionally, assign some people to monitor the Hutian region. If you spot them again, don't make a rash move and just directly report to me." Acknowledged. Tang Shou hung up and shifted to Duanmu Lin, asking, "Has any foreign force sneaked into the Taklamakan Desert?" Duanmu Lin forced a smile and said, "A total of 23 people came to the Taklamakan Desert in these 3 years, but all of them were killed by our people. They were intel operatives from various countries and forces, many of whom were practitioners. In fact, this secret base itself is extremely hidden, but we need many materials and we must purchase the mechanical molds from abroad. It's inevitable that it would attract attention." Tang Shou nodded silently. Then, he said, "I'll order my intel operatives to closely monitor the movements in China to keep all the spies away. But Jing just reported to me that 2 groups of people sneaked into the Hutian region and their goal should be this place. Are you going to send your men to remove them or should I go deal with them myself?" "I'll send my men to deal with them," Duanmu Lin said after thinking about it. "All right," Tang Shou said. Quickly, Zhulong left with tens of formidable ability users. None of them brought high-tech weapons so as to prevent any accidents, and they didn't take the strange green vehicle either. They just drove the desert off-road vehicles that were commonly used in the world and quickly sped up in the Hutian region's direction. Meanwhile, Tang Shou toured the secret base under Duanmu Lin's lead. Many of the tech products were objects that Tang Shou had seen, so he didn't feel a bit interested. What's this place? 4+ hours later, when everyone passed through another door to the outside, Tang Shou noticed that Duanmu Lin didn't seem to want to lead him inside. He immediately pointed to a certain spot and asked. "It's nothing worth visiting since it's only a warehouse that stores energy crystals," Duanmu Lin lightly said. "In front of us is an alien plant botanic area. That place will definitely be an eye-opener for you." "Energy crystals?" Tang Shou was secretly taken aback. When he handed over the energy crystal converter to Duanmu Lin previously, he had secretly sent his people to evacuate a large number of energy crystals stored in the 3-star vestige. He even duplicated the energy converter and the method to manufacture energy crystals. Over the past 3 years, the members of the Empire on 9 Dragons Island under MOE's leadership had been secretly manufacturing these energy crystals, with 4 lines of energy converters. Each line could produce nearly 100 energy crystals every day. Duanmu Lin. Tang Shou had no intention to leave anymore, and his tone when addressing this man changed. Hearing the new address made Duanmu Lin's heart thump, but he kept a calm expression on the surface and said, "Are you not interested in the alien plant botanic area? We can have a look elsewhere if you're not really interested." A hint of disappointment flashed in Tang Shou's eyes. He shook his head and said, "I want to remind you that you only have 2 years left. If you're still unable to put away your idea, then I'm afraid you can only stay here forever. Duanmu Lin was slightly furious inside. He was a great personage and an experienced man, how could he not sense the threat in Tang Xiu's words? The threat aroused his resentment and triggered his inborn stubbornness as he said lightly, I have my own duty. As long as I'm in this position, I'll stay here. Tang Xiu suddenly smiled, and his smile was particularly very bright as he said, anyhow, I'm really curious about the alien plant botanic area. Take me to see it. Duanmu Lin looked at Tang Xiu's back as he turned and left with an upside-down mood and complicated feelings. Had Tang Xiu insisted, he wouldn't stop Tang Xiu from entering the energy crystal storehouse and would even give him some if he asked. Tang Xiu, however, didn't insist. He even showed such an expression even after he stubbornly showed his stance. At this moment, he realized that Tang Xiu had given up on him. He opened his mouth and wanted to apologize, but he quickly swallowed it back. However, regret crazily grew inside his heart. In case that he was given another chance, he would have never refuted Tang Xiu, let alone said that. However, he knew that Tang Xiu never went back once he decided on something. No matter how he explained and pleaded, there was no hope left for him. Still, the immortal world was a place he had been wanting to go so much. He wanted to live longer and become stronger. But his impulse threw away this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity and filled his heart with bitterness. In the next 2 days, Tang Xiu stayed at the base, observing various high-tech products. He even had the impulse to refine some high-tech magical tools or even immortal tools. Lang, what do you think about the effect that can be produced by combining immortal cultivation with science and technology? Tang Xiu spoke while standing on the oasis above the base with a thoughtful look. Immortal cultivation has immortal power, whereas science and tech also offer its respective benefits. The combination of the two by utilizing the advantage of each and eliminating its weaknesses will certainly produce infinite benefits. However, how to combine them still needs to be considered and researched further. Otherwise, we can expect deviations to occur and damage both aspects. Tang Xiu nodded in response and looked at Tang Oolong. You've made great progress in just 3 years. I can tell that you've really grown up, just missing the last step. Tang Oolong was a bit embarrassed by Tang Xiu's remarks, but there was still a hint of confusion in his eyes as he asked, what last step, master? Well, you're still a boy and not yet a man, in my eyes. Tang Xiu chuckled and said, only when you've tasted the nourishment from a woman can you be considered as a real man, you know. An awkward look painted Tang Oolong's boyish face. He shook his vigorously and stated, I'd rather stay as a boy forever than become a man, master. I'm afraid that I'll end up like you. Huh? Come again? Tang Xiu looked dull. Tang Oolong grinningly said, well, I've seen how fierce masters' wives are. Cough, cough. Tang Xiu's breathing stopped for a moment, and he coughed hard several times afterward. If Tang Oolong were 10 years younger, he would have definitely smacked his ass. This brat unexpectedly. How could he dare to rebuke and tease his own master? Suddenly, Tang Xiu's expression shifted and he looked towards the distance. To his surprise, Zhu Long and 2 experts from the Special Abilities Bureau were fleeing in the desert a few kilometers away. Bleeding wounds could be seen all over their bodies, while tens of figures were moving lightning fast behind them in hot pursuit. They are foreigners, master, Tang Oolong said. Tang Xiu nodded and said, Zhu Long led a team a few days ago to hunt and kill those 2 groups that have sneaked into the desert. It's very likely that he ran into some powerful people and got hunted, ending up so badly like this. Having said that, his slim figure flickered and appeared in front of Zhu Long in less than 2 breaths. Seeing how their miserable condition, he asked indifferently, how about the others? The 3 people finally relaxed the moment they saw Tang Xiu. Zhu Long squeezed out a bitter smile and replied with wriggling lips, they are all dead. Mr. Tang, they are very powerful. Much more powerful than anyone who has infiltrated the desert previously. Tang Shou nodded and said, as far as I know, there should be 2 groups of them. What about the other one? The other group was from the Stygian Club. We had just got rid of them when these pyramid people intercepted us. All of us might have died had we not fought so desperately. Zhu Long, go back and tell Duan Mulin that I will not come here again from now on, Tang Shou said. Also, I want him to not look me anymore. Further, I hope he never forgets the promises and commitments he gave me before. What do you mean? Zhu Long looked bewildered, but he finally nodded silently. During their talk, tens of experts from Pyramid had already surrounded the 5 people. Their leader, a big man, who wore a black mask and wielded a long saber, coldly glared at Tang Shou and said, "It seems that our previous investigation is correct. You guys are absolutely carrying out a project in this desert. Spit out what you're doing here and maybe I can spare your life." Tang Shou indifferently smiled and said, "You should have bought that magic long saber at the Genesis auction house in Shanghai 3 years ago, right? How did you know that?" The big man's expression changed and he looked vigilant. "Because I'm the one who made it." Tang Shou slightly smiled. "If you don't believe me, take a look at the hilt. There's a small character on it." Tang. The big man didn't even glance at the hilt, but his finger pressed on the small mark.